St. John's wort for depression, ephedra to help me keep up, and this weird, funky juice called Verve, which I got off the internet from a weightlifting website. It was supposedly supposed to promote healthy sleep and invigorate your life. And it did that. It made me feel really great, but it also had a lot of consequences associated with it, and it's some really kind of weird stuff. This is what it looked like. I didn't go around telling everybody I'm drinking this funky blue juice off the internet. But all these consequences started to happen, like breaking both my ankles, breaking my teeth, breaking my nose, which somehow the Air Force, I explained it all away, but at the time, this obviously, I was having some difficulties with it. Alcohol, I was late to even try it. I didn't have my first drink until before my 22nd birthday. Somebody tried to buy me a beer on my 21st birthday, and I said, no, I can't do that. I'm not a drinker. I'll never be a drinker. So I never even tasted it until I was almost 22. But once I tasted it, I became like, I fell in love. It was one of those things that helped me feel like a regular person. And so when all these consequences started to happen, the Air Force started saying, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. So I did all these evaluations, but for some reason, people believed, at least on paper, they believed that I was as innocent as I was trying to make myself out to be. Because they would always say, Dr. Blair, we don't believe he has this problem with alcohol or drugs, but he should probably stay away from them anyways because he's just recently been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that's not a good combo. And again, in medical school, I was self-medicating. Intern year started on antidepressants, and eventually I had my manic episode. One thing with GHB, it doesn't show up on urine drug screen. So every time I would have a consequence, they would do a full drug panel and somehow be confused. They would attribute it to me having seizures or something, and I'd have this big workup and make sure my heart's working okay, because I failed to tell them that I was actually on GHB that night. And a lot of stuff happened that really I'm not too proud of now, but it helped me get to where I am today. So it's just one of those things you got to go through. So over the next several months, I was on multiple mood stabilizers, and eventually I was on Depakote, which I'm on now. And after formally being diagnosed, had all these consequences, broken ankles. I had a hard time getting stable because of all the stuff that was going on. And finally acknowledged to myself that I had a problem with GHB in 2003 after all these consequences. And I stopped all drugs and alcohol for a short time. But the medical board told me that I had bipolar disorder and didn't say I had a substance abuse disorder, so I kind of believed that. But they did say I shall abstain completely from alcohol and all other illicit substances. Somehow it was easy for me to forget this part, and so I started drinking again on occasion. And that occasional drinking, again, it's a progressive thing, so I got to where I was a weekend binge drinker and then started drinking on Thursdays, and just progressed until I started spiraling down. Some of the patient care issues I had, after I was discharged from the Air Force, they gave me a medical discharge for bipolar disorder. I had to try to apply to civilian residency programs, and Wright State didn't take me back. I mean, they said, you need some time of stability under your belt. So Wright State wouldn't take me back, but the one great thing about being a psychiatrist is there's no lack of jobs out there. And so I actually got hired by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and by community mental health to work for them as a full-blown psychiatrist, even though I hadn't even graduated or haven't even finished my third-year residency. They still hired me and paid me as a full-blown psychiatrist to work in these fields. But eventually I wanted to get back to residency so I could be a legitimate psychiatrist, and so I went back in July 2005 and started moonlighting in a place called Advanced Therapeutics. And one thing about having medical board involvement, I refer to it as my Lifetime Achievement Award, because even after if I'm sober for 30 years and haven't had a manic or depressive episode for 30 years, it's still going to be able to be looked up where you can see some of the stuff I've gone through. And actually patients have access to it as well. You can go online and look all this stuff up. And so I had a 37-year-old with bipolar disorder and borderline personality come in, and she said, oh, guess what? I found you on the internet. I actually specifically sought you out. I'm so glad that I have a doctor that understands what I'm going through. So some people actually seek you out based on your own issues. Other people probably avoid you. Of course, I don't see those people, but some people will actually seek you out. And so after I graduated from residency, I moved to Columbus. Again, I still didn't recognize I had a problem with alcohol, and I moved to downtown Columbus in the nightlife part of town. I got accepted to Twin Valley Behavioral Health Care and started working as a psychiatrist there and became a workaholic as well as a weekend binge drinker. Post-residency, this is where I had my big consequence related to alcohol and where I really hit rock bottom. I basically was running late for a moonlighting job on Sunday morning and got a text from a friend. Little hint, don't text and drive if you hear all that going around now. But it got me into some trouble, which is a good thing now because I'm where I'm at today. But I looked down to read the text and I hit a small utility pole, and basically the police followed the trail of oil to the hospital. It's only about a block away, and I ended up getting handcuffed in the middle of my hospital. And basically that's kind of where I first started to recognize some of the stuff I was going through. I know we're kind of running a little past, so should I just close with maybe reading this, Dr. Roman, or keep going? I mean, I have a little bit of what? What's that?
Keep on going.
Okay. Well, I'll read this in the end, but basically what I had to do, I had an agreement with the medical board for mental illness initially back in 2004. And what they required of me was 5 years of trying to keep my mental illness under control. I had to go through monthly urine drug screens. I didn't have to go through AA, a caduceus meeting. A caduceus is like an AA for physicians. Didn't have to go to aftercare. I had to see a psychiatrist once every 3 months. But once I got the consequences of addiction, had to go through weekly urine drug screens. I still have to go through AA 3 times a week. Go to a weekly caduceus program. Have to go through something called aftercare once a week for 2 years. I only have a couple of those left, but I meet with other physicians who are considered impaired once a week to go over recovery type issues. And I had a license suspension. I didn't have a license suspension for mental illness. I actually was suspended for 90 days, which led to me losing my job back then. And then I also had to go through a 28-day inpatient rehabilitation program. So the medical board mandated all this stuff in order for me to get my license back. So how has mental illness affected me? Positives, lessons learned. I used to try to heal myself, but now I've learned that it's more important to try to care for yourself by receiving appropriate treatment. Actually, this is old. This is from last year. Actually, 1 year and almost 4 months sober now. Some of the things that in a program of recovery you learn is that a lot of other areas of your life start to improve. Like my whole attitude and outlook on life is changing for the better. Things in my life are going so well. I'm in the first healthy romantic relationship in my life. My job now is going better than it ever has. And I have an increased capacity for empathy for a lot of my patients. And I'm motivated to be an advocate. I never thought I'd be standing up here talking about all my issues with people, but it's actually pretty therapeutic for me. Some of the negatives are the medical board involvement, but ironically, I actually look at the medical board now as a tangible source of my higher power. Because without the medical board, I never really would have got clean and sober. And they keep me coming back to meetings. I have to get a med slip signed for still 3 more years. So I have to keep going to AA and NA meetings for 3 more years just to keep my license. But I look at that as a good thing because probably if I didn't have that, I'm an addict and alcoholic. It'd be hard for me to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I had an initial blow to my ego, but I think in the whole process of recovery, that was a positive. Part of my problem was my ego, and what a program of recovery helps me to do is to deflate my ego to a point that I'm actually willing to seek out help. I don't have to handle everything myself. I'm able to look at potential tangible sources of my higher power, like people in a group of AA or the medical board as sources that help me stay better. In regards to responsibility and confidentiality, basically what this refers to is that maybe you're not having a problem, but you recognize problems in your med student peers or other physicians. What are you supposed to do then? Well, the American Medical Association actually has an ethical responsibility for us to report people who we suspect may have a problem. So that's out there,